Second Cup is brought to you by Roswell Park Comprehensive Care Center.
Hello and good morning. Welcome to Second Cup. Thank you so much for being part of the show. Thank you so much for just being you. Glad you're with us at 8 o'clock on the start of this Tuesday. Katie is off this morning, so you get me. And maybe Jordan and Jamal if they feel like chiming in. Do you feel like chiming in? So can I tell you what happened to me? I was just walking up here a little while ago, and don't tell my bosses this, but I was rushing up here after doing that cut-in, and my laptop slipped out of my hand. I tried to save it with all of my might and all of my power, to no avail. Crash, boom, right on the floor. Oh well, it works. That's what's most important. I guess these Mac babies are built of steel, that's for sure. Yes, we are losing another great reporter. As a matter of fact, Taylor Epps will be leaving us at the end of the week, and she'll join us on Second Cup on Friday morning. We are so sad to see Taylor go, but we're very happy for her. We'll let her talk all about that on Friday morning, so make sure that you're tuning in and setting your alarms for 8 o'clock. She'll join us on Second Cup. Yeah, Peter, when Katie's away, the fun level with Ed escalates to a new level. I know. Yeah, I know. She posted on Instagram and Facebook yesterday that she is leaving at the end of the week. Me too, Kathy. I love Taylor very, very much. She's just a really good person, so we'll celebrate with her, I guess, in a bittersweet moment on Friday. So make sure you're tuning in. Excuse me. This is something that I want to talk about, though. This is actually breaking right now. Buffalo police need your help finding this man. And this was just posted within the last 15 or so minutes by Buffalo police. They're looking for this man, Nurul Amin Shah Alam. They say he's missing. This man is approximately 5'4", 150 pounds, black hair, brown eyes, a mustache, light brown complexion, last seen at about 8 o'clock last night near the intersection of Niagara and Ontario. So we're talking the Riverside neighborhood here. He was wearing a dark winter jacket. Anyone with information regarding his whereabouts is asked to call 911. There really is no other information about who this person is. But Buffalo police are asking for your help finding him. Now, there are questions about what may have happened before his disappearance of sorts. And I don't want to get into that because we don't have it confirmed, but there is some concern about his whereabouts and his safety and his health. There are other reports out there from the Western New York Missing and Unidentified Persons Facebook group that says he's mostly blind and has difficulty walking. He doesn't speak English, but speaks a Bangala language. They say that his last known location was at the Tim Hortons on Niagara Street, but that afterward he was seen in downtown Buffalo. So at this point, again, they're asking for your help finding this man. If you know where he is or if you see him, you're asked to call 911. Julie says, I was actually posted him for my friend. I hope he sounds safe. Yes, we do too. We want everyone to be safe and sound and have everything, everyone working in their favor. So make sure if you see this person in Buffalo, downtown Buffalo, Riverside, heads up. They're looking for him. Okay. A couple of other things in Buffalo that I want to talk about this morning, and this one is kind of interesting. So we've been following this murder investigation against a Buffalo police officer. His name is Lance Woods. He's accused of shooting and killing his wife, Alexis Skochilas, in their home in Sanborn. For the first time, we're seeing her face. This is the 35-year-old mom of two who is now dead. And police say she was shot and killed by her own husband, who is a Buffalo police officer. It's terrible. Absolutely so sad for this family. So sad for the two children. Their family gave us permission to use this picture, by the way. And what's perhaps more alarming is that it was a Buffalo police officer who's now locked up accused of murder. But while all of this was going on, we've also now learned that a Buffalo police captain has been suspended in connection to the investigation into Woods. And now, for the first time, I'm learning that Buffalo captain's name, LaShondra Roach. She's been on the job for almost 20 years now, hired the same date as Woods, January 2008. Were the two friends? Did they have any connection? The Buffalo Police Interim Commissioner, Craig Macy, would not say. He also was not naming Roach in particular, only calling this person the captain. He did not release any names, but sources tell me Roach is in fact the captain Lance Woods met with on that Valentine's Day where he's accused of shooting and killing his wife. What I've learned is that Roach has been suspended twice before in her tenure with the Buffalo Police Department, once in 2016, once in 2017, both without pay. And now she's suspended again indefinitely with pay. So what we know based on a timeline released from the Buffalo Police Department is that at some point on Valentine's Day, Lance Woods shows up at the D District station where LaShondra Roach is the Buffalo police captain. The two have a conversation. They call Lewiston police. He, according to police, has their two kids, Skochilas and Woods, have the two kids with him. Does that make sense? Am I making sense here? Okay. So his two kids were with him. They call Lewiston police, and she was involved in the check the welfare call. At some point, though, later in the night, there's a shift change, and Woods winds up leaving the police station. He's found hours later by Cheektowaga and Amherst police, later arrested, and now we know charged with murder. Megan says, do you know why she was suspended before those two times? Yeah, so one in 2016 and one in 2017. And I just posted this story for you on WKBW.com. Jordan and Jamal are going to drop a link in the comments for me. I'll tell you exactly why, because according to her internal discipline file documents that were obtained by the 7 News I-team, she was suspended in 2016 after officers became involved in a physical pushing incident with each other. And then in 2017 as a lieutenant when she accepted and worked an overtime shift when she was already scheduled for court. So realistically, it's not much to do with the public. These are, it's not as if she used excessive force on somebody. It's not as if she, did something wrong when dealing with the public. Instead, it's like administrative stuff. And, in 2016, when she is accused of getting involved in some sort of pushing incident. Kathy says, so she basically covered for him. Well, we don't know that. We don't know what happened. We don't know what the conversation was between Woods and Roach when he was at the D District Police Station on Hurdle Avenue on Valentine's Day. Were their body cameras rolling? Were they friends? The interim police commissioner, Craig Macy, would not say. And again, I want to point out, and I want to be very clear, Macy has not named the captain, though sources tell me this is, in fact, the captain who is suspended now with pay. Rachel says she should be fired. Peter says something smells like trout here. Joyce says, sadly, there are good cops and bad. Heather says, so only women cops have consequences. Well, what do you mean by that, Heather? Walk me through your mindset here, because I'm interested in digging in a little bit here. I'm interested in your comment. What do you mean by that? Only women cops have consequences, because we know there are a lot of men who also face consequences as well. Only in this case, she was the higher up here. And what Buffalo Police Commissioner or Interim Commissioner Craig Macy says is that we do have some information that would lead us to believe there is some rules and regulations that may not have been followed. He's going to let the investigation play out, he says. But he explained that the check the welfare is being conducted at the D Delta Station House. And this is a direct quote from him. And Woods has the kids. He brings them there to have a discussion with the captain. So what was that discussion? What was discussed? Did she call Lewiston Police? It appears so, that they were on the phone with Lewiston Police at the time. And you know, who knew what, I guess, is the question here. Did she know at that point that he was accused, that he was a suspect? It doesn't appear so. It doesn't appear that the timeline matches up so that she would have known. It doesn't matter. Lauren says if it was a man or a woman. Star wondering, were they in a secret relationship? You know, I don't have the answer to that. But we do know that Skochilas had filed for a divorce from Woods in what was called a contested divorce. Kim says, so why was she in the wrong? Well, as Macy says, and again, Macy, the interim commissioner, is not naming a road. She's only saying the captain may not have followed all of the rules, regulations, and procedures. So again, another administrative issue for this Buffalo police captain who's been on the force since 2008. Almost 20 years. Suspended without pay, Kathy Lewis says, is the proper answer. We should point out, is suspended with pay right now. I did reach out to the Buffalo Police Union. There was no comment from the Buffalo Police Union about Roach. We should also make mention of the fact that Woods is not in the Buffalo Police Union. He exercised what's called his Janus rights, which is the ruling from a Supreme Court decision allowing a member of a public body, we're talking police, firefighters, to say, I don't want to pay dues, I don't want to be in the union, but not lose their job as a result of not paying dues to be in that public union. Kathy says, showing up at the station with kids was a manipulation in my eyes. Jim says, review facility internal cameras. And so again, you know, Craig Macy, who to his credit has come out transparently and gave us a timeline of what happened here, is letting the investigation, the internal investigation play out. And, you know, before he jumps to any disciplinary action, he's suspending this officer, this captain, with pay. The officer, meantime, Lance Woods, is locked up in the Orleans County Jail and, again, is suspended without pay. Kathy says should not be receiving pay while suspended, just my opinion. You know, here's the thing. Most times when officers who are in the union are suspended, it's likely, and in many cases, in most cases, I would argue, the rule is to suspend with pay, and I think there's a 30-day timeline per the union contract. What happens after that, we'll have to wait and see. Where did he leave the kids? Great question. I believe with a relative, but I don't want to talk out of turn here, so I'm going to leave that kind of with a question mark. Interesting. As you mentioned, Julie, this story is a mess. Yeah, and Gary says innocent until proven guilty goes for cops too. Absolutely. So we'll watch that one play out. The Attorney General's office is also now investigating. You can find my story and my reporting right now on WKBW.com. Again, Jordan and Jamal just posted a link in the comments, so make sure you're checking that out this morning. Okay, let's talk about the other issue in Buffalo. Not the weather today. Though downstate we know it is an issue, or at least they're digging out this morning. The other issue in Buffalo is that $40 million that is just sitting, waiting to be spent. Why didn't the city of Buffalo, why didn't previous administrations invest in our infrastructure? Buffalo Mayor Sean Ryan says there was underinvestment in our infrastructure for so many years, and explained that there was state money that was simply left on the table, this almost $40 million that these prior administrations didn't use. So this all came after a massive water main break on Hurdle Avenue at Military, when we heard from the mayor that, again, as he says, there was underinvestment in infrastructure for many, many years. So I went to this press conference later that day with he and the governor and asked Ryan this question. Do we have that bite? Okay, let me play that question for you, and you can hear for yourself what Ryan had to say. Listen. There's underinvestment in the city in infrastructure. What are you doing to invest in infrastructure?
So, while you can't actually predict where the water main is going to break, you do, well, you can't actually, but what you can do is you devise an infrastructure program. And that infrastructure program will be aimed at areas that have the oldest pipes. So, it's a combination of old brittle pipes with these deep freezes. So what the city hasn't been on is a program of infrastructure repairs. So we're going to get on a program with the DPW for our streets, but we're also getting in the same program for our water and our sewer.
Okay, so then we heard a couple of weeks later from Governor Kathy Hochul that Buffalo is getting $40 million in her proposed budget. The question is, okay, if her budget passes, when does this money come? This money in particular, though, would have or will only wind up closing that budget gap that we know Buffalo has at a tune of almost $40 million, completely separate from the money that the state has already offered to Buffalo, again, almost $40 million specifically for infrastructure. We're talking roads, we're talking traffic calming, we're talking road widening, we're talking bridges and overpasses, we're talking potentially sewer drains, we're talking storm drains and sewer lines potentially. That, again, that money just wasn't used. So now Buffalo lawmakers want answers. Why wasn't that money used in the past? Where is it? And what's the plan for that money as we move forward? So that meeting is today at 10 o'clock in the Buffalo Common Council chambers. They want to ask these questions of the Buffalo DPW Commissioner, Nolan Skipper, and they also want to ask these questions of the Buffalo Commissioner of Administration and Finance. Kathy says previous administrations have made the same promise, so that money was never used. For what reason? And then Julie says, I'm going to guess someone was too lazy to fix the stuff with the available money. She says, lazy bums. Kim, though, says, OMG, Amherst Street by the zoo, so awful. Colvin will be there soon also. Are there areas on your commute? Are there areas in your neighborhood that are worse in terms of infrastructure, in terms of potholes, in terms of needed repairs that are worse than others? Linda says Brown should have applied for the money that was available. And, I reached out to the Brown administration to find out what he was doing, what his guidance was and what should have been done. Brown, obviously now the CEO of Off Track Betting in Batavia, and I have not heard back from his camp over there. Mark says, it's going to be interesting finance meeting today. Yeah. to say the least. All of this came about after my reporting, after I asked Ryan that question and then dug in a little bit more to find out, okay, well, how much money is being left on the table? How much money is at stake here? And it turns out that Buffalo has the largest sum of unused money outside of New York City. Let me say that again. Buffalo has the largest amount of unused money earmarked for infrastructure outside of New York City. Nicole says it's terrible that the current administration has to answer for the past administrations. Traveling around the entire city is worse than I ever remember seeing. Reese, good morning to you. Because nobody cares about Buffalo, Reese says. It's full of black people and foreigners, and the only thing Buffalo cares about is the suburbs. It's a million potholes. Yes, up and down Main Street, Bailey Avenue, South Park, Louisiana, Jefferson Street. Steve Monaco says infrastructure, not just a Buffalo problem. Cheektowaga is also horribly bad too. I want to go back to Reese's comment here. And Reese, are you suggesting that the reason why, and I'm quoting what you say, is that nobody cares about Buffalo is because of the black people? Is that what you're saying here? I want to understand your perspective here, because we know Buffalo's history. We know segregation in the city of Buffalo exists. We know that there is an entire area that has been redlined, that has had systemic issues of racism. And we know that it took tragedy, the shooting of 10 black people, 10 innocent black people who were at the supermarket on May 14th, before anyone started paying attention to the east side of Buffalo. Reese says yes. And she says it's overwhelming. So, Reese, what I'm hearing you say, or what I think you're saying, is that Buffalo's systems, there are still systems in place that allow for this racism, that allow for people to be marginalized. Is that what you're saying here, Reese? I just want to make sure that I'm sharing your voice and I'm not just pulling at air here. Then she also says, I saw you in Marshalls and wanted to stop you, but it's horrible. You should have stopped me. Kathy says New York City has a diverse population too, though. And then Connie says Lockport is awful. Sue says a bigger holding center so bad people can actually be held accountable. Peter says this is why, yeah, I do ask the tough questions because I care about the area. And look, I'll be honest with you, some of these questions are not popular. Some of these questions make people uncomfortable. Some of these questions seem like they're an affront, like they are, why is Ed Dranch asking these questions? I'll tell you why. Because public money is at stake. Public money should be spread throughout the entire city. Public money should be used fairly. And when it's not, it is incumbent upon reporters to go out and ask these questions. Why? Where? How is this money being spent? And to whom is it going? Who benefits from this money? And if not for reporters asking these questions, would we know how this money is being spent? That there was an absolute underinvestment in infrastructure over years. Peter says, well, I don't 100% agree with Reese. I can see maybe where Reese is coming from. And maybe we just all need to kind of put ourselves in those shoes. Maybe we need to step outside ourselves and understand that there is another perspective out there. Carla says, I think potholes are bad everywhere right now. 'Tis the season. Absolutely. It's that freeze thaw. But the bottom line is that if you file a complaint with 311, that's the only way the DPW is going to know about it. Mark says it should be the council members to say where they need to spend the money, not the mayor. Well, the mayor makes the budget. The city council, the common council approves the budget. So, it's kind of like they support programs, they support projects, the common council members, but the mayor has to make sure that the budget is doled out. In other words, he creates the budget. He's the one making the projects a priority. And then Corrine says Nottingham Terrace area is perfect and Bailey Avenue looks like a war zone. Interesting, right? Reese says you can't 100% agree because we are not the same color. We don't share the same experience. It's awful. Help us in Buffalo, Reese says. And this is kind of an interesting conversation because it's almost like it goes back to that conversation I had with Dean Lewis in the days after the May 14th shooting, where he kind of explained to me what his experience is as a black man going through what he goes through on a daily basis. And I'll never forget this. He says to me, Ed, and he was pissed. He was angry at this point. And I think all of Buffalo was, because we realized how white supremacy and how marginalized this minority community has been. But what he said to me was, have you ever been in an elevator with a woman while she's clutching her purse, or followed around a store because of the color of your skin? And I haven't been. I mean, here's little gay Ed, little gay Jewish Ed from Long Island walking around, la la la. Dean Lewis has a different experience. By the way, you can find that entire conversation on YouTube, and I invite you to check that out. Reese, though, says Byron Brown was horrible. Kathy says if the East Side, for instance, has been left to rot for years, the amount of work to fix it must be extraordinary. And then Lee says $40 million is probably just a drop in the hat of the infrastructure issue, if I had to guess. Yes, absolutely. I mean, we know it'll take millions, if not billions, to fix the Buffalo water infrastructure alone. But it's a start. It's something. Sean says I should go for mayor. I don't know that many people would vote for me, Sean. But I appreciate your confidence. I'll tell you something. I didn't grow up in Buffalo. I grew up on Long Island. I grew up in a suburb of New York City. When I moved to Buffalo 15 years ago, I didn't understand who or what Buffalo was. And I always say that until you spend time in Buffalo, you don't understand Buffalo. Now, here I am 15 years later, and I've made it my mission after the May 14th shooting to really make sure that the East Side, the minority community, has a voice. And I think it deserves that voice. And I think that when media stands up for people in that community who've otherwise been marginalized for some time, we can only make change and move forward as a community. Jeffrey says, my name is Jeffrey Richardson, president of Amalgamated Transit Union. Shh, Siri, quiet. Transit Union Local 1342. We can use some of that money to be dedicated to get workers at a fair wage to help with the pension. You have a city with failing transportation system because it's a shortage of operators, mechanics, and paratransit workers, et cetera. We need a dedicated source of funding so that we can move people in the city of Buffalo. For sure. Kathy says somebody needs to take the first step. Reese, I appreciate you. Thank you for weighing in here, and thank you for sharing your perspective. Mark says Main Street was going to be done 6 years ago. Nothing's happened. Great point. Diane says, give Ed a call. Yeah, absolutely. You all have my phone number here. It's 716-713-3514. You know my phone's always on, and if I don't answer, you can leave a voicemail or send me a text message. 716-713-3514. Megan, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I think it's really important that we have this discussion. Shut up, Siri. I think it's really important to have these discussions, and I think it's really important to highlight, and I don't want to use the word expose. I think that's a strong word, but I think it's important to highlight the differences in neighborhoods, the differences in the way we treat our own people. So give me a call whenever you want. Peter, thank you very much for saying that, and you give WKBW, give media a good name. Well, I really appreciate that. Yep, we take the first step by speaking out, and this is indeed what Second Cup is all about. I know. Sorry. Anyway, we got to get the show on the road. Thanks for being with us on a Tuesday. We appreciate you. Great conversation today. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Have a good one.